Uh, Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Amit Sarwal, co-founder of the Australia Today, and I'm one of the editors. Today, we have with us um, a special guest, Professor Salvatore Babones from Sydney. And I think Professor Salvatore Babones is someone who doesn't need any introduction anymore. He is more popular than I think James Bond, and I have been told, and this is still under wraps, that maybe he's the right person to replace James. He will to play James Bond as the most popular foreign agent. So it's still under wraps, but maybe we will see him playing something, taking on the evil journalists of the world at some point of time. But I have with me my good friends Jitat Bharadwaj, who's co-founder and editor at the Australia Today, and Pallavi Jain, who's a senior journalist and editor Sydney for Australia Today. So, Professor Babones, most welcome once again. 2 months ago, we did a piece with you, Indian intellectuals poisoning the reputation of India. The piece, and you became quite hit, especially amongst the masses, not the elite, but especially amongst the masses who crave for truth and facts, and especially who crave for people who are ready to point out those facts to them. So, welcome, and you have just returned from India. How was your experience overall?
Look, I had a wonderful experience of India, and I don't know who the masses, quote unquote, are. I met all sorts of professionals in all walks of life, and everyone was very supportive. I had a great time.
It's good to know that you had great time, but the key question for us today is, why are Rajdeep Sardesai and Shekhar Gupta afraid of Professor Salvatore
No,
Babones? What have you done to them?
look, no one's afraid. No one's afraid of Professor Babones, and both Rajdeep and Shekhar were really fantastic to me. So first of all, I really want to make clear. I've seen a lot of negativity directed at both of them online on my account, and I don't want negativity directed at anyone. So to be clear, Rajdeep gave me in that India Today interview, he gave me softball questions that were obviously intended to try to make me look good. In fact, he went so far as to give me questions that would make him look bad, right? And make me look good. But so he was a wonderful, generous interviewer. I have no complaint about him. And of course, Shekhar Gupta, he greenlit that article about my foreign agent registration, which was very funny. But then again, he invited me into the print to have a chat, put me in his chair and let me type at his computer. And we had an hour and a half conversation. So I have nothing bad to say about either of them. Both of them simply reported on me factually. Now Rajdeep did release a YouTube video this weekend, yesterday, to which I released a YouTube response and on Twitter as well. And it's been a lot of fun having these dueling videos. There's no problem there. I was shocked when Shekhar Gupta devoted a Cut the Clutter to me. I've been watching Cut the Clutter daily 5 days a week for the last 3 years. So to see my face on Cut the Clutter, I was incredibly flattered. Now, I do think that both Rajdeep and Shekhar have made errors. I welcome the opportunity here to correct those errors, but errors don't mean ill will. Everyone makes errors. I have errors. I mean, in fact, the version of my article that's been widely spread, my Quadrant article, the version that's been widely spread has errors in it because Quadrant accidentally published my first draft, and then my corrected article is behind the paywall. No one has seen the corrected final draft of the paper. So look, everyone makes mistakes. I hope we'll talk about some of Shekhar's mistakes today. As I told Pallavi before we went live, she should title this video, Salvatore Babones, I have a very particular set of skills. Because Shekhar Gupta in his Cut the Clutter fell into some very common errors in cross-national analysis, and I hope we'll get into those. Yeah. But no ill will towards anyone. Either none of them have ill will towards me, and I don't have ill will towards them. I want to make that very clear.
Now, I started the thing with you being the most popular foreign agent, but not many people know what that foreign agent in Australia means. Because if you think about being foreign agent, it has different connotations in India than say in India, Australia, and USA. And I would like to invite Pallavi to put some highlight on this. What's a foreign agent in Australia? Pallavi.
Amit, before that, I would like to say this, that Professor Salvatore Babones is in very esteemed company. He's in the company of 4 former Prime Ministers of Australia, who are all registered in the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme. Kevin Rudd and Tony Abbott continue to be registered there as registrants. And John Howard and Malcolm Turnbull were registered for a period of time, like Professor Babones, who was also registered for a short period. I would also like to state here that when it comes to foreign principles, organizations like the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and then organizations like the Al Jazeera, there are some academic institutions like King's College London, Arizona State University, that are also registered here. So being registered here in no way, absolutely no way, implies that you are working for a foreign government, and neither does it necessarily mean that you are working for some political party. I would direct my question to Salvatore, that Mr. Shekhar Gupta has gone on record to say, if I'm not mistaken, that you have worked for the government of India. I think that was his suggestion in one of his videos. So we want to ask you if what is truth, if there's any truth to that, and what do you make of his assessment? Because from whatever we have read, your being registered here in no way implies that.
No, I don't remember him saying that. If he did, he's mistaken. The registry is very clear. I had a short contract worth $4,000 or about 2.5% of my annual income, to put it in context, in 1 year, in 2020, with a private company called Democracy News Live. Now, I don't know the sources of their funding, so whether they are, I don't know who funds them. That's really none of my business. So from my perspective, it's a private company that contracted me. If someone wants to call them and investigate them, that's fine. I tell the truth, I was a bit disappointed in the print when they wrote the article about the foreign agent registry status, because the article would be, the fact would be unremarkable unless they found there was something untoward in the registration of which I wasn't aware. So I wish they had gone and tried to find, they did look up who the company was registered to, but I wish they had interviewed officers of the company, tried to find out where their funding came from. Certainly, as someone, when you get a contract from a company, you don't hire a private investigator to find the ownership status of the company. It's a small contract. I had no reason to believe they're in any way a bad organization. To my mind, they just seem to be a news organization that was attempting to reach a wider audience and didn't quite know how to break into Western markets. But like I said, it was 2 years ago. Certainly, my democracy report has nothing to do with that. And something that everyone should realize is real secret, undercover, inappropriate foreign influence doesn't work via people registering. If there were any kind of back channel or inappropriate influence, it wouldn't be sitting there in my official registry. As you demonstrated with Prime Minister's Register, it's simply a requirement in the US and Australia that if you're working in a field involving influence on the electorate, and I do write articles, and I was helping them write articles for a Western press that might, in principle, be thought to influence people's opinions, the proper thing to do is just to register that you're doing it.
Yeah,
Pro forma.
and I would like to add here, Amit, also that an organization like change.org in Australia is also registered as a foreign principal because it's a subsidiary of change.org, PBS in America. And when I went through the information, even on the American website, nothing there insinuates or suggests that if you are listed there, that you are working for you're necessarily working for a foreign government. So so if you could tell us.
I don't want to belabor the point, but the great irony here is that one of the items on which the democracy rankings have evaluated India poorly is for enforcing the FCRA. which is India's own Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. And the NGOs that do the international democracy rankings have considered that requiring Indian NGOs to register their foreign donors is somehow anti-democratic. Well, you know, I think registering foreign donors, I wish we had to register domestic donors. I mean, in my ideal world, anyone should be registering who they work for in this world where we, you know, are all trying to put our opinions out into the public sphere. But, you know, look, complying with local laws is just complying with local laws. And in any case, if anyone feels there was influence involved, that was influence from 2 years ago, and I wrote the report this year. So, yeah, unrelated.
If I can comment, Professor, Shekhar Gupta specifically said that you have worked for Indian government. Even if you have and you're registered to foreign as a foreign agent, that means you are foreign agent to Australia, you are a foreign agent to America, but you are not foreign agent to India. So I find it
yeah, look, I want to be clear. It doesn't matter. I did not work for the Indian government at any time. I've never worked for the Indian government. Anything beyond that, look, if you want to investigate what happened 2 years ago with this organization, it's all a matter in the public domain. But it's a nothing burger, as we say in America.
Professor, clearly Shekhar Gupta, on a show which he claims to be truth-seeking, lied on the face. He had, I'm not sure whether he asked you or not, but he lied on a prominent channel which goes to millions of people claiming.
No, look, I think it's really. Look, I think it's really unfair. I mean, look, I don't remember if he used the specific word government or not, but he did make very clear on his Cut the Clutter that he found nothing untoward or inappropriate. And, you know, like, it's fair enough. I mean, if he said the word government, I don't remember if he said the word government or not, but he certainly, the gist of his overall evaluation was that there was nothing inappropriate. He met me. He thought I was credible and, you know, and forthright. And I appreciate that he had that view of me. I'm sorry to cut you off, but, you know, neither Shekhar nor Rajdeep has said anything toward or about me that I would take as an insult. And I ask you not to take it as an insult on my behalf, because both of them have just been incredibly welcoming and friendly towards me. I hope that can be the last word on this.
Yeah.
I mean, Rajdeep Sardesai has been my boss. I have worked under him. So I have a great respect for him, the way he does things. But at the same point, I would love to point out where he's kind of not correct. Okay, they
may make errors, and Shekhar made a lot of errors in that Cut the Clutter. I want to go through his errors, but but neither of them expressed any malice towards me. And let's just get that off the table. These people have both been extremely friendly to me.
I'll just conclude on that point, Professor Babones, because while it's very gracious of you to not take this personally, but our opinion as viewers of that Cut the Clutter program was that they were trying to suggest that you have worked for the government of India, and that's why what you're saying is just an opinion, or that you're working on behalf of the government. This is what it came across to us as listeners of that program, and hence it became important for us to reach to our viewers to make it absolutely clear that that is not the case.
Yes. Well, thank you. But look, let's talk about the facts. Let's talk about the evidence. Yes. There's so much to talk about. Let's not get caught up in if someone insulted me or not. I mean, I don't feel insulted. Let's move forward.
One of the key things that you have pointed out, and you have been pointing out, that the facts are not right. So
yes,
what are the facts that we are talking about here that Shekhar got wrong, maybe Rajdeep got wrong in his,
Sure.
So my interview at Conclave. What is your opinion of the facts again? And you said you also made some errors in the original piece, but in the pieces that we have published and, behind the paywall, the facts are right. So what are these facts that people are afraid of not talking about?
Okay, so first, I wanted to be clear in my Quadrant article. There's nothing factually wrong in my Quadrant article. It's been published. Yeah. There is a lack of correct facts. So there's additional evidence that was not published in the published version that should have been published. So that's a minor issue. let's put that aside for a minute. What Shekhar got wrong, Shekhar made a very elementary mistake. So I think, I'm not sure if I should call him Shekhar or Mr. Gupta. He's been so friendly to me, but he also seems like I should call him, Guru Gupta ji, because he's taught me so much. But what Shekhar got wrong in his article, in his Cut the Clutter, he seemed to want to say, all right, some people may believe that all of this criticism of Indian democracy comes from left-wing progressive intellectuals, yet here are two right-wing think tanks, the Cato Institute and the Fraser Institute in Canada, Cato in Washington, Fraser in Canada, that these two think tanks, which can't be accused of left-wing bias, and he's correct, these are two conservative, free market-oriented think tanks, that they also rated India badly and also show a deterioration of Indian democracy. And he made a huge error here. So he said specifically, both that these two institutes in their Human Freedom Index report show that freedom of religion in India has declined dramatically under Mr. Modi. And then he said, and I'm going to quote Shekhar here, quote, "This has not been done by making phone calls to some intellectuals. Go to page 389 of this 435-page report, and there is methodology explained in detail under each head." Now, unfortunately, neither Shekhar nor his data journalist actually went to page 389 of his 435-page report, because if they had, they would have found out that this information on freedom of religion comes from two sources. It comes primarily from, drumroll please, the Variety of Democracies Institute report on Indian democracy, the VDEM Institute report. And I'm going to tell you what the VDEM says about the source of its data. Now, these are the data that go into the Human Freedom Index report. They're cited to VDEM. VDEM says that these freedom of religion indicators are based on, quote, "They are evaluative indicators based on multiple ratings provided by country experts. These data require evaluations about the de facto state of affairs in a particular country at a particular time. Country experts code these data. These experts are generally academics, intellectuals, that is 85% of them, or professionals working in media or public affairs, e.g., senior analysts, editors, and judges. About 2/3 are nationals of or residents in the country and have documented knowledge of both that country and a specific substantive area." In other words, 2/3 of the people who are answering the VDEM survey are Indian academics, most of them, or a few are senior media or public affairs figures. So, in other words, they are exactly making phone calls to some intellectuals, or more likely emails. So it was just very funny. And as soon as I heard Shekhar cite Human Freedom Index report, I thought, we got to talk about this. So it was very, very funny. Not only the freedom of religion, now the religion indices in the Human Freedom Index come from VDEM, and then one of the many items comes from the U.S. State Department Religious Freedom Report, which everyone in India knows that the U.S. State Department Religious Freedom Report is essentially an advocacy document that Christian missionaries who are very influential in the U.S. Insist on having statements put in the Religious Freedom Report against any country that it feels limits their missionary activity in any way whatsoever. Okay, so that's where that comes from. Then Shekhar went on to say there's also been a dramatic drop in freedom of association, assembly, and civil society in India, according to the Cato-Fraser Human Freedom Index. What is the only source for freedom of association, assembly, and civil society in the Cato-Fraser Human Freedom Index? The Varieties of Democracy Institute is the only source. So it's just the VDEM data being repackaged. Freedom of expression and information, Varieties of Democracy Institute is the only source. And then when they get to media freedom in the, again, the Cato-Fraser Human Freedom Index, where does media freedom come from? It comes from the Freedom House Freedom in the World report, which was one of the other reports I studied in my paper. So Shekhar wanted to say, look, it's not just these organizations Salvatore is talking about, VDEM, Freedom House, The Economist, who are criticizing India. It's also these conservative organizations. Well, those conservative organizations are simply pulling the data from VDem and Freedom House. They're not doing any additional analyses of their own on these metrics. So irony of ironies, elementary mistake, because those of us who study these things are aware that, the reason I focused on the 3 indices I did is that I'm very aware that the other indices are just indices of indices. So the other ones, like the Cato-Fraser index, just take the existing indices and repackage them, reweight them, and produce a report based on them. Shekhar wasn't aware. More troublingly, his data journalist wasn't aware. And very troublingly, although Shekhar specifically sent us, saying, read the footnote, he didn't read the footnote. His data journalist didn't read the footnote. You got to read the footnotes if you're going to be a quality journalist.
Yeah, and we can assure you that we always read the footnotes, Professor. Honestly, always, because we do thorough research, because we are independent and we follow facts, and that's what journalism is about. Jay, you wanted to ask Professor Salvatore something?
It's kind of beautiful. Professor Salvatore is able to find out or deconstruct what Shekhar Gupta's cut the clutter was. I'll kind of take you away from Shekhar Gupta. Let's go to my ex-boss, Rajdeep Sardesai. Was that an angry burst of Rajdeep Sardesai because he was being thrashed on social media? That small video of that conclave went viral, which he claimed 1.4 million views. So is he unhappy that you were able to make a point there and he was seen as being shut up by you?
Look, he seemed, my impression, and look, it's always hard to talk about someone else's emotions. He seemed a bit petulant, to be honest, but not in a bad way. Look, as I said in my own Twitter response to Rajdeep, his job as a journalist is to question, and there's nothing wrong with the fact. While he was at the conclave, he did his paid job for India Today, which was be a generous interviewer, get the soundbite. As an interviewer, his job is to make money for India Today. And he made money for India Today. He did what he was supposed to do. He got the soundbite of the conference that went viral. Not one of the other journalists. He got it. And he got it purposely. We rehearsed everything beforehand. He knew what he wanted to ask. He knew where he would get the sound bites, and he got them. Okay. Then, as a journalist, he went back independently, because his YouTube channel is not sponsored by India Today. It's an independent YouTube channel. And he went back and said, look, I want to go back over some things. I want to look at Salvatore's background, and I want to look at his claims. Now, with the background, he did find my Trump book, my 2018 book, The New Authoritarianism, Trump Populism, and the Tyranny of Experts. And he made some general conclusions about that he views me as a Trumpian. He actually used that word, Salvatore's a Trumpian. So along those lines, I want to quote from you from the review of this book in the Wall Street Journal. Now, this was a review made in 2018, the height of all of the Trump stuff going on. I want to read you this review from the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
So this is from Barton Swaim, editorial page editor of the Wall Street Journal, who did the review. Salvatore Babones, an American-born professor of sociology and social policy at the University of Sydney, doesn't defend Mr. Trump or his administration. But he does suggest the Trump phenomenon may galvanize a revival of democratic self-rule. Mr. Babones, whose ideological affiliations remain a mystery to me, does not fear, as many American liberals do, that Mr. Trump is an authoritarian president. He believes rather that the president's populism is a protest against a different kind of authoritarianism, the rule of unelected experts. Now, I'm very proud of the fact that I could write a book in 2018 at the height of Trump derangement, and my reviewer couldn't tell whether or not I'm a Trump supporter. Now, I think if you can do that, you can maintain your objectivity. And, I'm very proud of that. I try not to take sides in my academic writing. The purpose of academic writing is not to support one president or another president. The purpose of academic writing is to get at the facts, to educate, to help people understand what's going on in the world. And I wrote that Trump book with that purpose. Now, in 2018, it seems like any intellectual who did not actively condemn Trump was viewed as somehow Trumpian. And if people want to perceive it that way, that's fine. I have nothing against Donald Trump. I mean, you know, I think in many ways he was a very good president, but I certainly didn't campaign for Donald Trump. And the book is not a Trumpian book, as you can see from the Wall Street Journal review.
Yeah, and
So,
I want to
Rajdeep Sardesai, was he honest in his outburst, or he was, as you have quoted a review, I find that review a little honest about you and what you have written. Was Rajdeep Sardesai on a scale of 10 as honest as that review, or he had some issues in his understanding and reflection of you?
Look, like Shekhar, he made an amateur mistake. Look, you can't demand, I mean, all of you are journalists. We can't demand that a journalist read an entire book before commenting on its author. You know, the journalist has to make a quick judgment based on what other people are saying about the book, the kinds of people who like the book. And the book was very much liked by Trump supporters. And so it's certainly no surprise. I mean, if he went to my Wikipedia page, he would have found the suggestion that I'm a Trump supporter on the Wikipedia page even. You know, there's a consensus around this, that among intellectuals, that if you're not outright condemning Trump, you must be a Trumpian or a Trump apologist. And so again, I don't blame I wouldn't vilify Rajdeep for jumping to that conclusion. Now, did Rajdeep make a mistake? Yes, Rajdeep made a mistake. My prior book, 16 for 16, A Progressive Agenda for a Better America, was very much, you know, a Sandersonian, I don't think we have a word for it, a Bernie Sanders book, promoting a Bernie Sanders agenda for American social policy. Again, it didn't mention Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders might very well, and I wish he had, you know, picked up that book and said, this is my agenda. You know, look, he made a mistake, but he made an honest mistake that was reasonable to make. The same way, you know, Shekhar Gupta made an honest mistake in thinking that Cato and Fraser were independent, you know, of other think tanks. Now, both of them made mistakes through not doing sufficient research before going to press. And that's more particularly disappointing in Shekhar because he makes a big point that the print does not try to be first to press, it tries to get things right. So, you know, I mean, on the other hand, on a vlog that, you know, that Rajdeep did, there's no commitment on a quick vlog that you're going to take the time to do the research to get things right. So I am more disappointed in that sense in Shekhar than in Rajdeep, but I just want to be absolutely clear. Neither of them showed any ill will in what they did. They just rushed to conclusion without being sufficiently careful.
But I think, Salvatore, you have already pointed out that as individuals, they are okay. But when it comes as a group, you know, as a pack, they have this ill will towards anyone who points out facts. So let it be. But Rajdeep, in his private video YouTube blog, also pointed out that, oh, I checked Salvatore's background and how much he has written about India. This person has not even been to India, and how can he write about India? As academic, I've never been to, you know, America. I went to America in 2019, but I was reading literature from Jewish American writers, and I was writing papers on Jewish American, African American writers. So as it is very hard for some people to believe that academics can write about things without leaving the comfort zone of their home. They just need a library and good stock of research material. And then that's what we are writing about, facts. Which you have clearly pointed, but you are, you know, very generous in saying that Rajdeep and both Shekhar have made mistake and error, which even if I was going to publish an academic paper and I made such mistakes, my reputation would be tarnished. But journalists in India are able to make mistakes again and again and again. And then you have a situation like The Wire, which backfires. And we discussed The Wire with you last time.
Well, The Wire wasn't a mistake. The Wire was intentional fabrication. But I mean, let me go to that point of never having been to India. So as an academic in my work, I work with documents and data. I don't work with personal experiences. Now, a journalist works with personal experiences. A journalist goes out in the field, interviews a few people, has a look around, and comes up and writes a report. And I can understand that journalists would imagine that academics would do the same. In fact, I would turn that around, though, and say that if I used my personal experience of India to inform my academic writing on India, how many times would I have to visit India? I mean, once, twice, 30? 40? I mean, I could visit India 40 times without ever going to the south. Would I know India? I could visit India 100 times without ever going to the northeast. Would I know India? So like from my standpoint as an academic, no matter how many times I may visit India in the future, the challenge for me will not be to learn from India during my visits. The challenge for me will be to ignore what I saw in my visit so that I can do systematic, unbiased work. And in fact, until I got the India Today invitation, my plan had been to studiously avoid visiting India until after I'd finished writing my book on India, because I didn't want random biases from random things that happened to me during visits to creep into my work without me realizing it. And I thought, if I completely stay away from India, I know I won't be biased by my own personal impressions of the country. So I'd like to turn that whole idea around, that, how could you write this if you've never been to India, and say, no. How can you write this objectively if you have been to India, if you've been influenced by things you've seen personally? It's better never to have been there.
Yeah, and I want to make a point here that the whole idea is that you can have any view about anything, but if you're an academic, and even when you're a journalist, your job is to be objective when reporting on facts. I mean, making an error is not excusable either in journalism or academia, maybe once, maybe twice, but it just shows that you're not good at your job. So whatever your personal feelings may be, and I think, Salvatore, you've made this point several times, that whether it's a report that you agree with or data that you disagree with, you do your due diligence before publishing something, and that is what is expected of people who are at a certain position. Because if you don't do that, then you're neither a journalist, neither you're an academic. So just wanted to make that point, that irrespective of your opinion or what you feel, that is a basic necessity of doing journalism or academia, that you do your due diligence.
I would pull one step back even from that. I think you're still being a little too harsh, in that, look, everyone makes mistakes. The obligation is to correct your mistakes. So I would love to see Shekhar post a correction to the Cut the Clutter in the comments underneath. We got this wrong on the Cato Fraser report. Not to pull it down, because it's a historical artifact. The report was made. The Cut the Clutter was published. Let's put a note on it. Look, we made this error. Now, very rarely do journalists make these disclaimers, but that's what I would like to see. Not that no mistakes are ever made, but that any mistakes that are made get corrected.
Yeah, but if generally speaking, if normal journalists were to make a mistake, they would receive a serious backlash. You could lose your job for making a mistake. So, but Amit wanted to come in.
Yeah, is Salvatore, are you here?
I think
we
That's all right.
just lost Salvatore, I think, but he will be back. I think Pallavi, you made a really good point. As academic and journalists at certain level, if you make mistakes, I think Jay has worked at various levels from junior to senior journalists. You can be removed. I think Salvatore is back. Can you hear us, Salvatore?
Not yet. I think not yet.
Okay. So what the point Pallavi was making?
Right. I was having internet problems.
Yes.
I'm back?
Yes, you're back.
All right, I was having internet problems. I always keep two internet connections handy because the internet is so bad in Australia. So I switched to my backup. Internet. Sorry about that. Hopefully we'll
Michelle Rowland is
be working now.
Michelle, I would like to take this opportunity to actually thank all the people who support.
It doesn't look good.
And Salvatore, you too. But I'll take you away from India for some time. But we will still stay with India, because I don't want to talk about Shekhar Gupta and Rajdeep Sardesai for a second. I'll talk to you about an American academic very controversial academic who has called you that you are a Hindutva ideologue, basically. This was a surprise to us as well, because I think he's gone again, the internet.
Pallavi, in the meantime, when Salvatore solves his issues with the thing, can you explain us what is a foreign agent?
Okay, so I will take you back there. So there is the foreign influence transparency scheme in Australia, under which basically, if you are, you have to I'll just refer to my notes here. Just give me one second. So essentially, what happens is that if you are, taking any registrable activities, that is for America. Jay, you can put up the other video. This is the definition for America. You can bring up the slide for Australia. So and if you undertake any registrable activities on behalf of a foreign principal, then you are expected to register here. And there can be like 4 categories: as government organization, political organization, government entity, or a individual related to the government. And these activities can be political in nature, or they can include communication activities and things like that. And so it is a very wide scope under which you can be registered under this. But in no way does this mean that you are a foreign agent of a foreign government. As I've mentioned before, that 4 former Australian prime ministers have been registered under the scheme. 2 were registered for a short period. Mr. Malcolm Turnbull, I think, for 1 year. John Howard for, I think, 2 years. Mr. Tony Abbott and Mr. Kevin Rudd continue to be registrants here. The British Broadcasting Corporation is registered, is noted as a foreign principal. So is Al Jazeera, and so are a host of other institutions. So the point being that we want to make it absolutely clear that from our research, it is very clear that being registered here in no way makes you a foreign agent of a foreign government. Because the word foreign agent has certain connotations, and that's why it was important for us to let our viewers know what it actually means. And even so, for the what it means according to the United States Justice Department, foreign agent being registered there in no way means that you are working for a foreign government. It may include that, but it has several categories. So that needs to.
So, sorry, I dropped out because of my bad internet. Look, if we're back on the foreign agent thing, can I tell a funny little story about that?
Yes.
So at the time I had this small contract, it had been huge news in Australia. The Australia Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme is very new. In 2019, when it was first created, the first person they went after, the first person that the Attorney General's office in Australia went after was Tony Abbott. He was a former prime minister, conservative, and not liked by the bureaucrats. And they really had it in for him. So he was speaking at the CPAC conference, the Conservative Political Action Committee conference in Sydney, just a speaker at the conference. And he didn't register. And they sent him a letter, an official letter, saying, we want to investigate your activities. You may be forced to register. We want details about how much you're being paid, what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And they sent a letter to, again, a legal notice to the CPAC organizers saying, we want to know, who is behind your organization, et cetera. Now, the CPAC conference is just an annual conference that's put on, and he was just a speaker at this annual conference. He refused to register. The people at CPAC refused to respond. It became a big political issue in Australia. And okay, there it went. As a result of that prosecution, everybody registered everything. Right? Everyone said, well, if former prime ministers are going to be prosecuted publicly for speaking at a conference, and remember, I'm a permanent resident here. I'm not a citizen. If I were convicted of a foreign influence, error in my paperwork, I could be deported. So everyone started registering everything. And the government then got upset because like this registry became meaningless. So they actually contacted me. They were contacting people one by one and saying, please withdraw your registration. So they contacted me. They said, Professor Babones, please withdraw your registration. We've determined that it is not necessary. I said, can you give me an official letter saying that I will never be prosecuted under this? They said, no, we can't do that. But, look, it's fine. Don't register. I said, look, an unwritten promise is not worth the paper it's not written on. If you can't give me, if you can't, that's a famous American saying, supposedly Sam Goldwyn, the movie producer. So, if they can't put it in writing that I don't have to register, I'm registering, because you know what? There's no penalty for registering, and I could be kicked out of the country for not registering. And apparently I wasn't the only one. So they were inundated with registrations under the scheme. It's probably settled down now, but they literally called me and asked me repeatedly, please don't register, and they said they're calling hundreds of people telling us not to register. So it was just very funny, but because they had made a big deal of it, better safe than sorry, right? I don't have a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. And you know what? I can't get in any trouble, except maybe in the Indian media, but I can't get in any legal trouble for frivolously registering. And then because I registered in Australia, I'm a US citizen, which means in theory, the American government could pick up my Australian registration and say, you're a US citizen involving, working as a foreign agent. And so I said, well, you know what? I better register in the US as well. And so I registered in the US because I was registered in Australia. There you go. That's the story of how it all happened.
I think you are the only academic I know of who's willingly going to register for such a thing, because usually academics, be it in India, America, US, Europe, they make a hue and cry about academic freedom. And we know one American historian specifically who makes such outlandish claims about her freedom being trampled by Hindutva thugs.
Oh, not Trusky. Oh, you want to talk about Audrey Trusky? Let's talk about Audrey Trusky.
I'm just mentioning your popularity. I'm not mistaken that you are going to be the next James Bond. But
no. So Audrey Trusky. Oh, this is great. This is a great story. I told this story at JNU, in my speech at JNU. So Audrey Trusky, apparently, people forwarded me this tweet, screenshot. Yeah. She put out a tweet saying, folks, just so you know, be careful about listening to these Hindutva people. You can pull up the tweet if you happen to have it. These Hindutva people, did you know that Salvatore Babones is registered as a foreign agent? And she didn't put a link to the print article, which is presumably where she found out. She put a link to, more ominously, the registration scheme. And I thought, how dishonest of her, since she knows that, an ordinary Indian mechanic, car mechanic may not know what a foreign influence registry is, but she knows what a foreign influence registry is. So she put it, wait, it gets better. Then she blocked me on Twitter.
Welcome to the party.
Now, look, anyone who's I challenge you. I challenge everybody. And, I'm not one of these people who challenges then has to eat his words later. I challenge everyone to go through my entire, I think it's now 11 years of Twitter feed and find one negative thing I've said about anybody. Right? One, anywhere in 11 years. So she blocked me. Why? Well, not because, she might have thought I was going to say some nasty thing about her. I didn't even know, I'm pretty sure I don't follow her. I don't have any, I don't have any connection with her whatsoever. Presumably, she blocked me so that I couldn't see the tweet, so I couldn't respond to the tweet that she had made about me, because I would gladly have responded, just like I've responded to Rajdeep, who, by the way, has not blocked me. So Trusky, the most dishonest. Okay, Shekhar and Rajdeep, they made honest mistakes. Trusky, pure dishonesty. She is letting her personal politics drive her supposedly, academic, supposedly, unbiased evaluations. And that's just completely wrong. Look, as academic, like, we should be collegial. I mean, why is she going to say something nasty about me and then block me? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if she's also a fellow academic, right? Like, I don't understand people like that, but I guess some people just are unhappy, and that's their burden to bear, not mine.
And I think it's more than that. It's about not debating on facts. I think if whatever person, maybe if you are so confident about your facts, then sit with the person and have a debate. The very fact, it's only those people, I think, who know that they are low on facts, who indulge in personal mudslinging. I think people who are confident of their facts are always open for a healthy debate and discussion. Jay, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, Jay.
I just want to ask Professor Audrey Touche, in that whatever screenshot you and I have got, because I'm blocked on that, she has
You too.
Yeah, our job is asking questions, and these fellows suddenly don't like somebody asking them questions, and when you point towards facts, they absolutely don't like you. She has kind of put a link there which goes to the US whatever platform you have applied to, and the worst part of it is I'm not sure your address is there. So she kind of is showing your address to each and every person, and while these people claim that their personal information see, this is a difficult world we are living in. So why and how these people are so dishonest in what they do, and when the same thing comes to them, they just make a hue and cry out of it.
Oh yeah, look, people yell doxing all the time. Look, although I didn't realize I'd been doxed, but I live a very public life. I teach lectures at the university, so I can't hide. I mean, anyone who did want to come beat me up, I guess, can come beat me up at the university. Please don't. But I live a very public life in a safe country, and of course, anything can happen to anyone, anywhere, and I don't want to dismiss the possibility. But look, I've received just so much positive support from everybody that, short of a terrorist attack, God forbid, I'm sure I'll be safe. And let's hope it doesn't come to that level of hatred and violence with anything I've done.
Yeah, and Professor, what I recollection, I guess it all started with the interview, a very friendly chat, and an interview that we had here at the Australia Today, and then we invited you to write the article. So what do you think about it? It was just 2 months ago, and did you foresee that it would go viral in India, and that so many people would pick it up and read it and things like that?
Yeah, we've had several steps up of virality. Which has been a lot of fun. No, I had no idea that I would become an Indian Twitter personality. But as you can see from my Twitter feed, I am enjoying it. Look, I think anyone can tell I'm a happy person. And look, I really enjoy joking around a little. I write a humor column for Quadrant Magazine here called The Philistine, and I've enjoyed joking around on Twitter. When I found out that my Con Market Gang photo had been broadcast nationwide by India Today, I just thought, okay, that's a great chance now to start having some fun. And so I've just been having fun with it, telling jokes. And, for instance, I was at the street festival here in King's Cross, not far from my apartment in Sydney. And they had these, colored pennants up, and one of the pennants was saffron. And so I took a photo of the pennant with, showing me with the pennant behind, saying, oh, can't escape the RSS even here in Australia. Now, of course, it wasn't an RSS pennant. Anyone who thought this was really an RSS pennant, no, this is just some random, but it looked kind of like an RSS Hindutva pennant. And that's the most read thing I've ever put on Twitter. More than 1 million people. More than 1 million people have read that photo of me with the pennant. So it's just been a lot of fun, and hopefully no one takes it too seriously. When I left India, I took a picture of myself, as the Terminator with my sunglasses saying, I'll be back. And what was really funny was a lot of the people in my feed didn't seem to know that was from the Terminator, and so they said, or they knew it, but they didn't know I was making fun of it, and so they said, "Oh, Arnold said that too." Of course, Arnold said that too. That's the whole joke. Is that people putting photos of Arnold as a Terminator, saying, like, "Did you know Arnold said this?" Yes, I know Arnold said this. That was the whole point of the joke. So, it's just been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying it.
As I said, that we won't be at Australia Today. We won't be surprised if you either played James Bond or you played a cameo in the James Bond. But there's this final question that I would like to ask you, and I think we have lost the connection.
No, just turning on some lights. That's all.
Yeah. So, as I said, we won't be surprised that if you either played Bond or played a cameo in the Bond, maybe an Indian scene or something. But this is the final question that I would like to ask you as an academic and as journalists, that why are people afraid of talking on facts and actual figures rather than focus on experiences of groups, class, the circles, the in circle and who's the out of the circle kind of thing? This is my final question to you for today. If Shekhar Gupta and Rajdeep Sardesai are not afraid of the very lovable Professor Salvatore Babones, then are they afraid of facts and figures?
Yeah. So first, I want to be clear. I have no ambition to be in James Bond. I'd much rather be in the next Rajamouli movie. If RRR2 is coming out, please, Mr. Rajamouli, I'm here. Give me a little bit part in the back. I'm very happy for free to play the white guy who gets killed, because I know that if I'm a white guy in a Rajamouli movie, like, that's it. I'm done for. But no, look, seriously, facts are hard, right? I mean, it's a lot of work to go to the facts. My whole paper on Indian democracy rankings, many people ask me, well, Salvatore, why haven't Indian scholars done this? Why hasn't the government done this? And the answer is because, it takes work. I mean, it's very easy to just issue a rebuttal. It's very easy for the government to say, well, it's unfair to judge India on the standards of Western democracy. Well, but that's not rebutting the charges. If you want to rebut it, you have to do the hard work of going to the details. And as a data academic, I mean, I'm not a data scientist. I'm a sociologist, but I'm a sociologist who wrote a book on methods for quantitative macro comparative research. I've spent years studying the international data infrastructure and writing about the international data infrastructure. I'm very comfortable in that world. Now, journalists are not so comfortable in that world, and it takes a lot of work to master it. I encourage them to master it, or at least if they're not going to master it, to not be so confident in what they say about it until they've taken the time, until they've reached out to a few experts like me who maybe do have the information. I mean, the irony of that cut the clutter from Shekhar Gupta is I had just been in his office the day before. He could have asked me. I mean, if he'd asked me about that, I would have warned him. Oh, no, that's just repackaged data. Don't worry about the Cato report. It's just repackaged data. It's the same data by another name. All right. So it's not that people are averse to facts. It's that getting the facts and analyzing data systematically just takes a very careful eye. And it's something, I'm going to be honest, most social scientists don't want to have to do, because it's much easier to cherry pick the data you want instead of systematically going to the data, working with it, creating your spreadsheets. I mean, it's just work, that's all. But it's work anyone can do. I mean, this work I did with the democracy rankings, the quick work I did on the Cato report, the quick work I did, I mean, it took me all of 1 hour, less than an hour, about half an hour to find the error in the global hunger index that showed India's hunger increasing. And I told Pallavi, that's impossible. India's grown 50% in GDP since 2014. Hunger can't have increased. And it took me about half an hour to find that the error was a 2014 data point that, let's be honest, was probably inserted by the previous government in order to make itself look good before the election, but then made the next government look bad because the artificial high, then came to the accurate low, 8 years later. Look, it took me half an hour. Now, none of that involved regression modeling, very complex statistical work. It just required, knowing where to look for the numbers, going to the data, being very careful, reading each footnote and asking, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Anyone can do it if you take the time. And I encourage people to, educate themselves, take the time, not just journalists, also ordinary readers. I mean, you hear me spouting off stuff. Well, go to my report, look at the footnotes and ask, oh, is Babones right? Or is he misrepresenting something? And if you're careful and you take the time, you won't get it the truth, but you'll at least avoid being in error. And that's the best we can do. We'll never know the truth until we reach enlightenment, but we can avoid making errors. And the fewer errors we make and the more we avoid them, the closer to the truth at least we'll be.
Yeah. Well, and Jay, any concluding words from Jay, and then I will conclude. And Amit, you want to say something?
No. Jay, go ahead.
Yeah.
See, I'm not as forgiving like Professor Salvatore Babones. I if it was a courtroom, then I would have given like judgment that Rajdeep Sardesai and Shekhar Gupta both are guilty of being dishonest, one, and what Professor calls error. I will say that they have specifically cherry-picked facts, which is one side of the coin, and they wanted to make Professor Salvatore look bad in eyes of millions and millions of people who follow them. That is the last word. And I mean, unless and until these Indian journalists don't stop this, whatever their gimmicky of turning the facts in their favor, glass is half full or half empty, you can interpret it either way. But this has to stop if we want to win over the real confidence of the people of India or globally. Thank you.
And I'll just say this, that that this is a long debate, but we are very thankful to Professor Salvatore for taking out time and coming on our platform. And I'm sure we'll continue to have more interviews with Salvatore. And thank you so much for clarifying clearly to everyone that whether it was through error or whether it was malicious intent, we will never know. But to clarify to everyone that you've not worked for the government of India, and that and whatever it may have been, your data had nothing to do with that. And I think we can all agree that debates should be done on facts and data and on right facts, and one can have disagreements over issues, but getting personal is not okay. Debates should be done on facts. Last word to you, Professor Salvatore.
Oh, I have my last word. Look, everyone, just calm down a little bit and realize that we all want what's best for the world. And, all of you who are Indian want what's best for India. You may disagree over means, but I'm sure that all of you agree over ends. And, that's something to remember, and just not be so angry. Let's just realize that we're all friends and we all just want what's best for the world.
Once again, thank you, Jita. Thank you, Pallavi. And thank you, Professor Salvatore Babones, for giving your precious time. And people who are watching us, for ethical, independent, and fact-based journalism, do follow The Australia Today on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We are also on TikTok sometimes, not always. So we are trying to be on every social media. And my last words are, see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.